All right, I'll start over. It's nice to see everyone, familiar faces, and it's also nice to make new connections as well. You may see my cat behind me. That's Sasha. She's wanted to be in on the meeting as well. So I just want to speak about my advocacy journey, which is not complicated, but it began long before I realized, which I think may be the case for some of you that are here. Um, Recently, the memory came back to me of the first time an ER doctor addressed me in a disrespectful manner. And I was upset. This was in college, so it was about 1996, and I wanted to leave, but I needed help. So I swallowed my anger and I was silent. I had no idea how many more times that this would happen while I was living with while living with migraine. But actually anger played a major role in my advocacy journey. But more on that later. I have a family. I have 3 children, and I've always worked full time. As far as the type of mother I am, well, I always wanted to give them all the time that they deserved, and I ran all the time. I would tell people not to call me on weeknights because I was too busy, and when my kids went to bed, I wasn't far behind them. But as my migraine disease progressed, it was particularly distressing because I didn't have time to give to it. And then my youngest child started having severe behavior problems to the point where it was necessary for me to quit my day job and start working overnight so I could have days free to be with her in school. So you know that irregular sleep schedule didn't help. By 2012, I had gotten so bad that my neurologist, after I pleaded with him, put me on my first medical leave. It was only for a month, which changed nothing. He really didn't seem interested in treating me as an individual. And though I had no education regarding migraine, I instinctively knew something wasn't right about the way he was prescribing me meds willy nilly. He always seemed to want to get in and get out of the exam room as quickly as possible. I should have dropped him, but I wasn't at that point in my migraine journey where I had the confidence to do that. As time went on, my health deteriorated and my parenting was affected, which was very stressful for me. Migraine was taking time from all areas of my life, most importantly, my children. In 2014, I had another neuro who decided to take me off all of my meds and put me on my second medical leave. I decided that this time I was determined to learn about this monster that was attempting to take control of my life. So I sat down and typed migraine into the browser. I learned many things that were interesting and enlightening, although there was nowhere as much information out there then, only 7 years ago, that there is now. I saw migraine.com and I subscribed. I joined my first Facebook group, Chronic Migraine Awareness. So now I was really starting to have some oh moments and really moments, and I have to bring this up to my doctor moments. It was really great to find camaraderie in the private groups, getting advice, getting comfort, giving comfort, hearing other members' experiences and learning from them. The emotional support was something that was invaluable. I learned so much during that time, and I realized that most people don't know much about migraine. Through my reading, I learned that migraine received very little funding and how that funding was needed for research. So why didn't it get it? But people don't take it seriously. Even my own neurologist told me that migraine isn't a disease. So that's where my anger entered the picture. How dare they be so dismissive when people's lives are being destroyed? I wanted to have a forum of my own about migraine where we could post interesting and educational things, a page where we could talk about migraine. So I created Her Migraine Life during that leave. But I noticed that the people who said so much in the private Facebook group wouldn't share any of that stuff on my page, which was public. I guess I expected an open forum. I was frustrated at first, but subsequently changed the description of the page and decided that anything I experienced in my life related to migraine was fair game for Her Migraine Life. To be fair, I've always been a pretty open person, but um, my purpose was and is, besides sharing things I learned, to encourage others living with migraine to share their life with others. The most powerful testimony comes from those who live it. I returned to work after 3 months in 2014 after long-term disability through my job, which I paid for, made it clear that they'd rather do anything in the world than approve it. And I had bills to pay, so what choice did I have? In October of 2014, I participated by way of volunteering in the Philadelphia Miles for Migraine Race and Walk. What a cold, rainy, miserable day. And I couldn't have been happier. I manned the nutrition table, diligently keeping the runners from the bananas and the granola bars until after the race. It was a great day. Everyone was there for the same reason. There were many people there who were like me, which was definitely a first, and those without a headache disorder were there to support those who were. I felt love that day. I have volunteered at every race since then, doing that job in others and at other events as well. For instance, at the very first education day at Lincoln Hospital, I had the privilege of setting up the room for those who needed to go to a quiet, dark place during the program. One thing I've learned is there is always a role for a person to play, and no role is insignificant. If you want to help, sign up. Even if you don't think you have a particular set of skills, there will always be a role for you, an important one. One day, I went to a Miles for Migraine dinner, which I believe addressed the subject of migraine stigma. As I had registered in advance, there was a nameplate at my seat which read, Deborah Turk, Advocate. I was surprised and I asked Shirley, our executive director, I'm an advocate? And she said, yes. At that time, I thought advocate was a title for some official position, and I know that there are many today that think of the word that way. But actually, the moment I typed the word migraine into my browser, I became an advocate. Advocacy encompasses everything I've mentioned and much more. Educating yourself, joining social media groups, meetups, volunteering, reading blogs, and signing up for newsletters. In addition, writing blogs, telling your story, joining support groups, participating in your treatment, setting limits, and standing up for yourself with people in your personal life, requesting accommodations at work. These are all methods of self-advocacy. That is why I said you may have been an advocate before you even knew it. Recently, Miles for Migraine asked for people to submit an advocacy story which was particularly significant to them. I knew that I wanted to talk about the Pennsylvania Convention for Women. The people who stopped at the booth were women of all different ages from all walks of life. The reaction I perceived in them when they noticed the booth to a large degree was surprise that there was an organization dedicated to migraine. Then there were the women who were living with migraine who had a lot of questions. The majority of them did not see a specialist and were not informed about available treatments. Some spoke about their employment being affected and had no idea that migraine qualifies as a disability and that they may have legal protections available to them. I loved being able to listen to their experiences and share what knowledge I could share with them in that brief period of time. At times, the booth would become swamped, and it would be a challenge for my partner and me to connect with each person and answer their questions, but it was exciting. I imagine that that's probably how some teachers feel when they see their students excited about learning. I came away from the Pennsylvania Convention for Women each time confident that the people that stopped by our booth felt happy, hopeful, empowered, and relieved. For the first time, they realized they were not an island. Their suffering was validated. Their advocacy journeys had begun. When the convention was canceled last year because of the coronavirus, I was disappointed, but I understood. But I'm confident that the convention will return and that I will be there. Though COVID-19 has ruined a lot of plans, there's been a silver lining when it comes to migraine advocacy. In 2019, a group of us were sponsored to attend training by the U.S. Pain Foundation to facilitate community support groups. Hopefully, you are all aware of the Miles for Migraine support groups. While the groups that were once held in different areas, some with struggling numbers of attendance, are now all virtual. And as you can imagine, it can be difficult for people living with migraine disease to be able to go out in the community as we are sick so often. But once the groups became virtual, the attendance numbers skyrocketed. And interestingly, when I was first approached about facilitating a support group on Zoom, I didn't think I'd be good enough. Something about doing it that way intimidated me, and I'm not easily intimidated. But I had a lot of encouragement from my tribe and my partner. And after I started, I wonder what I had been so worried about. Speaking of tribe, I don't want to miss impressing upon you how important it is that we form connections within the migraine community. Not even loved ones with the best intentions can understand the various challenges of living with this disease. Some folks make fun of the term safe space, but within our established social media groups, intimate support groups, and gatherings, large gatherings like Retreat Migraine, where no one demanded an explanation when someone stood up in the middle of a program and went to bed, our tribe guarantees that you'll be in a safe space. And I can say that without a doubt, especially in the first 5 years, I have learned more from people in our community than I have from my practitioners. So is my advocacy journey complete? No, I don't think it ever will be. Much of my motivation has been on education thus far to fight migraine stigma, but I've had other things on my mind as well. On 2 separate visits to the emergency room, I never got a room. I was left in the hallway on a stretcher. One was directly across from the nurse's station. When I said, I'm supposed to be in the dark, I was basically told, take it or leave it. I was so hot. I got down to leave, but I needed help. So I lied back down and I put that flimsy blanket over my head. There are these ER visits that I've just recounted show complete disregard and disrespect migraine patients get in the ER. And there are so many more students of people that have had it a lot worse than me. From being told we are seeking attention, to having psychotic episodes, we're being drug seekers, to having negative and defamatory notes surreptitiously entered into our medical records, to being discharged without being treated, the rights of migraine patients are violated daily. There are laws protecting the rights of workers with migraine that to a large degree aren't being followed. And I believe we all know the experience of our insurance companies refusing to cover our meds. So many involved in these battles don't know what to do or where to turn. When you think of certain other diseases, you know that the violations that go down with us would never be tolerated with them. They have organizations or teams within their organizations set up to advocate for their patients. If certain news about rights violating incidents got out, there would be hell to pay, either in the press or in the court of public opinion or in the pocket or criminally, or all of the above. Yes, we are all involved in advocacy, but when I had a serious issue that occurred, I contacted every experienced advocate with connections that I knew, and no one knew what to advise. So I just went at it alone and did the best I could. Most of the times that's how it goes, or we accept a violation, and that's understandable because given from from our perspective, it's a David and Goliath situation. My dream is that there will be a number to call with people that can advise you, who have applicable legal knowledge, knowledge of hospital administration, experience in navigation of insurance coverage, and are well acquainted with current forms of treatment. And maybe everyone working there won't have to be a person with migraine disease, but there have to be some that do. The patient perspective is vital. Yes, I know that people are well acquainted. Yes, I know people that are well acquainted with some of the above areas, but I would like to see everything pulled under an organization with structure. I know I'm not the only one who would like to see this, because I've talked about it with others in the migraine world. Another thing I like to see is a database for attorneys that have been used to win disability cases for people with headache disorders, along with ratings. We should be able to do better than picking one from the internet. If there is one, and if there is one already in existence, I haven't seen it. I could have used it in my petitions. Lastly, I wish for people who live with migraine to overcome the stigma of having a comorbidity of mental illness. There are too many of us with mental illness for us to continue to minimize it or not acknowledge it at all. We need to properly treat our mental illness to achieve optimal results in treating our migraine disease and vice versa. So those are the 3 areas that have the advocacy cogs turning in my brain right now. But right now, you can find me co-facilitating a Miles for Migraine online support group with my partner, Katie Moran, on Monday evenings, and on my Facebook page, Her Migraine Life. And maybe you'll run into me on a committee or 2. Thank you, everyone.